The public publisher of the works of Maria Valtorta has published several books of Maria Valtorta's letters to different people. And there are two volumes of letters to Mother Maria Teresa. Sorry, Teresa Maria, Mother Teresa Maria. She was a prioress of a Carmelite monastery. And in those letters, she pours out her heart. She's Maria Valtorta is trying to confide in her the problems she is facing. However, there is an astonishing two letters which talk about the servant of God, Luigina Sinapi, who was trying to get the works published, was trying to help to see if the poem of the man God would be published. I'm going to read you through two letters here. However, there are some things in these letters that are so shocking. I was very sad because it talks about the attempted rape of that woman by somebody in the Vatican. And as I read it out, you'll hear it. But I was there thinking to me, could this be women's gossip? Could this be women's gossip talking about attempted rape? And for some reason, I was just thinking back to the late 40s and 50s in the Vatican. And that exact same time, there was letters going about those being abused by Father Marcial, who was in Rome at the time. Father Marcial, who was abusing seminarians, raping seminarians in Rome at the time. They had gone to the Holy Father, they'd gone to the Vatican to try and to get justice. And, Father Marcial had whatever influence in the Vatican that he manages to get this. He was condemned, he was removed, but he manages to return after the death of Pius the 12th. And so when I'm looking at the letter that Maria Valtorta is writing describing the attempted rape of this woman who is trying to help get the works published, and I'm thinking of what is happening with Father Marcial at the same time, because we have a lot of documentation. I'm just there thinking, I don't think this is women's gossip in a letter between Maria Valtorta and a Carmelite sister. I think this is deadly serious, and it shows the demonic influence against Maria Valtorta's work. And I've read all of the poem of the man God, and I'm asking myself, really, well, what in this work is so damaging for the church? There's no damage to the church, because you read the poem of the man God, you're going to confession more, you're going to mass more, you're praying more, you take on the mind of Christ, you start acting like Christ wants you to act, to love, to not judge, do not hold resentments, because Christ brings you through what he's trying to do in your life, the catechesis that Christ is trying to do. And so there's nothing in the poem of the man God that would really, I mean, from my point of view, would cause me any concerns. It is a beautiful work that Christ is trying to do in the church, this special charism that he gave to Maria Valtorta. But you see all the intricacies, the demonic opposition that you have against this work, and no real solid report from anybody to say, well, this work has this error or that error. We've never seen anything like that, solidly. But anyway, I'm going to read you through this letter. It's not published in English, and I don't think it's been known in the English-speaking world. I was speaking to somebody today in Italy, and they mentioned to me about these two volumes, and that not many people know about what went on, the politics, the diabolical fulminations and calumniations against Maria Valtorta in the 40s and 50s. Not many people know outside the Italian-speaking world. It's interesting in a way, because Christ didn't want this work to be known. When the Father Migliorini was kind of leaking some of these works as they were being collected together, and I suppose that kind of this drip feed out, which Christ had asked Maria Valtorta not to do. He didn't want, for example, he didn't want Maria Valtorta's name known. He didn't want it published at that time. He wanted it, the Servites of Maria, to collect it all together and to publish it. But, there was I can understand why Father Migliorini spread it around. It is an amazing work, but that's not what Christ was asking Maria Valtorta to do. But at the end of the day, the politics got to where it was, that it never got published as it should have been published, and she had to give it to another publisher to have it published. But this letter speaks a lot. This mystic knew Pius XII. She knew Pius XII even before he became Pope. She knew him as Cardinal because she had received a message from Our Lady at Tre Fontane. So I do recommend that people Google who is Servant of Maria Luigina Sinapi, and you will see the pivotal role that she had. And something was happening in the church in the 40s. You have all of these mystics, the church raising up all of these mystics in the 40s and 50s. Padre Pios and Maria Valtorta, Luisa Picaretta, although people will have different opinions, but I suppose the question has to be asked. We have all of these mystics, Luigina Sinapi, Bruno Cornacchiola, etc., etc. Something, the warning that heaven was trying to give the church. And at the same time, we know from the investigations into Father Marcial, there was deep corruption in the Vatican. There was deep corruption in the Vatican at the time. There's no doubt about it. And so it's in that light I ask the church to reevaluate Maria Valtorta today. Read her. Read her. Read her works. Read her letters. A serious study needs to be done on her life, on her letters, and what they did to her. And I've no doubt that this account is true, considering what I know about that period in the Vatican anyway. So pray for the church. Anyway, I'm just going to read this letter out to you and just leave it there so we have it on the record, so people, as I blog about Maria Valtorta, and as this moves forward, this study of her moves forward, that people understand that this work is vital for our time. It's not some romanticized novel that a bedridden woman had written. This work is for our time. In a time of such confusion in the church, this work is for our time. Never before has sacred scripture been so trodden on. Never before has the church had such confusion, crisis. What Christ is calling us to is to him. He's calling pastors to be other Christs, to be in a state of union with God, to be his disciples, his apostles. He's calling bishops to be apostles. You're not a synodal church, you're an apostolic church. Always remember that. The role of the apostles is very specific in the church, and the successors of the apostles is very significant in the church. The successors of the apostles are not Peter's secretaries. Remember, bishops are not papal secretaries. Yes men to Pope Francis. You are successors of the apostles. So it's really important at this moment in the church. Anyway, I'll leave it there. I'll let you I'll just read out this letter. I'm going to read you this letter that Maria Valtorta wrote to Mother Teresa Maria, a cloistered nun who was the prioress of a monastery of Descalced Carmelites. And this letter isn't published yet in English, but it is in Italian, and I've done a translation. It's in the second volume of letters from Maria Valtorta to Mother Teresa Maria. In an undated letter, Maria recounts, "Know that in Rome lives a soul guided on extraordinary paths, a woman not yet 30 years old, who is often called by the Holy Father to have supernatural insights. Naturally, the Sacro-Officio, the Holy Office, and the Pontifical Antechamber, as well as many prelates of the Roman Curia, hate her because she reveals to the Holy Father the background, anything but edifying, of many prelates. But we cannot prevent her from going to the Pope because she has a paralyzing power, so that if she wants, she can pass without the obstacles being able to hold her back. At the beginning of her mission, she was slandered as hysterical, possessed. They performed exorcisms on her. They tried to have her locked up in a mental asylum first, then in a convent. But then they had to give up and let her do it. In January, towards the end of the month, our Lord Jesus Christ gave her the order to go to the Holy Office to rebuke those gentlemen of the harm they are doing to souls by denying the printing of the work, the poem of the man God. To the Holy Father, to whom everyone accuses of being the author of the block, while he believes the work has already been unblocked, approved, etc., etc. Remember, she is writing this after the Holy Father has met with the three fathers, the Servites of Maria, and given them the authorization to print the book. According to his directives to me, treat it with deception, to a religious order that would draw lustre and profit from the work for its missions devastated by the war. The order that the works were in charge to was the Servants of Mary, the Servites of Maria, and they had many missions around the world, and Jesus wanted them to print the work and for them to profit from it, but they couldn't because of the Holy Office was blocking them from actually printing anything. Imagine what happened. They attacked her furiously, saying that she should not concern herself with it because they knew what they were doing, and if they forbade the printing, it was because the work was heretical fruit of a possessed person, etc., etc. And since Luigina is the pseudonym that she's using to cover the identity of servant of God Luigina Sinapi. And since this Luigina said, "Now I will go to your holiness and tell him how you act," they warned her. "Woe to you if you speak to him about this. We forbid you." And Luigina, "God speaks to you, speak, and I will. God wants you to speak, and I will speak." They beat her and performed exorcisms on her until she said, "Do them to yourself, because the devil is in you, not in me." So they tried to rape her. Do you understand? Saying, we will make your visions go away. When your uterus is tired and satisfied, you will see that everything will go away. And then they take offense if God dictates, "My church is no longer holy, and for this reason communism and the punishment of God is coming." But Luigina, with her power, paralyzed the one who was preparing to take away her purity. Luigina is unmarried. And until he, 8 days later, publicly confessed to having attempted rape, the paralysis did not cease. In the meantime, Luigina went to the Holy Father and told him everything. And first of all, that God had told her that the work is from God. The Holy Father was astonished because he had given other directives, which he had ordered to be printed. He said, "I will call the person and question him. Of course, this way I do not have helpers, but Judases." Luigina returned a few days later, bringing a report in which it is said that Monsignor Carnici, Monsignor Corsenigo, Monsignor Tredici, Monsignor Lattanzi, Monsignor Roschini, etc., etc., had read and judged, etc., for which it is requested that His Holiness intervene, etc., etc. The Holy Father put it in his breviary, assuring that he has always been in favour of the publication and wants it. Luigina wanted this to be written into the report to show it to those of the Holy Father, but His Holiness replied, "No, I do not want to act arrogantly. I will call them and make them reason, and if they oppose, I will take the matter to myself. In fact, he called Cardinal Ottaviani, accessor of the Holy Father, but he remained stubborn. Then His Holiness personally began to examine the matter, discarding all the congregations, because in all of them he found that they were either indifferent people or underhanded people, who did not advise him of the truth of things, even though they approached him in private every week. Luciana will return again to the Holy Father to repeat to him that the work by the communication from Jesus is from God, and he wants it published. And this is in volume 2, pages 280 to 82 of the second volume of the letters. Another undated letter continues the shocking story. My mother. The novel continues. It continues in the light of colours. This is a translation from the Italian. It continues colourfully. Thank goodness. So, I have received news from Luciana. Luciana, the creature I spoke to you about, returned to His Holiness on March 29th. His Holiness reconfirmed that he had personally taken care of the matter. In fact, the promemoria that Luciana had brought to him some time ago, and which set out the petition and the plan to the Honourable Corsanego and Tredici and Monsignor Latenzi, and which His Holiness had placed in his pocket breviary, was passed by His Holiness to Cardinal Nicola Canali, who is one of the cardinals of the Holy Office, as well as Cardinal Protector of the Order of Servants of Mary. 2. He then told Luciana and the Honourable Corsanego and Tredici, Monsignor Latanzi and Father Roschini, principal theologian of the Order of the Servants of Maria, as well as reviewer of the books of the Holy Office, as well as a member of the Congregation of Rites, therefore together with His Excellency Monsignor Conici, asked for the special audience again. 3. Father Roschini, before doing so, spoke with Luciana and was convinced that it was all true, so much so that he wrote to me with these words: "It seems that the resurrection of the work is now near." 4. Professor Ferry, the one who has made the two heads of Jesus in my room on Palm Sunday, also spoke to Luciana. Professor Ferry, he's the artist. You've many sketches. There's actually a book, Lorenzo Ferri. I've used some of his art in the videos. And Professor Ferry is one of the made the two heads of Jesus, and in my room on Palm Sunday also spoke to Luciana. He showed her several heads, among which those two, and Luciana confidently said, "This and this is him, the others are not." Another proof in my favour. 5. On the evening of the 17th, Father Migliorini and Berti went to Honourable Corsanego to tell him to renew the request for an audience with the Master of the Chamber, Monsignor Calori di Vignale. Now, we will see that this man repeats the little game of saying yes and then saying no, granted by the order of His Holiness, in which case Luciana will return to the Holy Pontiff and report. But I believe that after God's punishment, the desire will pass. I don't know if he knows that on the evening of Holy Thursday, Father Cordovani, Dominican, master of the holy places, theologian of the holy palaces, and head of the Holy Office, as well as the main opponent of the work, died suddenly, fulminating paralysis, without having time to say, "My Jesus." And the beautiful thing is that there was no fuss about this departure of the famous Dominican and powerful Dominican. Not even the Notiziario del Mundo, the newspaper of the world, the Catholic world, spoke about it. 6. Luciana's spiritual director also wrote to me saying, "Rest assured that the work will be printed for Jesus' sake." He also said so clearly to Luciana, "Let us await the opportune hour, which will certainly come. We await with great faith, and we strengthen the effect with the contribution of our suffering and prayer." This is my news, which I wanted to let you know, received Thursday. And this is in volume 2, pages 285 to 286 of the letters of Maria Valtorta to Mother Teresa Maria.